It's Saturday night in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I start my 45-minute walk from the condo to the Bellagio, and it's slightly chilly with a temperature of around 45 degrees and overcast skies, but things are about to heat up as tonight I'll be playing a massive poker game, the biggest public no-limit game going on in the city, 10-20 with $40 straddles and uncapped buy-ins. I'm up around $2,000 total on my trip, but tonight can make or break me. If things go well, I could walk away with a huge win. If things go bad, I could lose thousands and thousands of dollars. I first sit down with my 5-10 game while waiting for the big game, and I immediately get into a big pot. I raise it up to $30 here with pocket fives from Under the Gun +2. The cutoff player makes the call for $30, and now the big blind 3-bets me to $130. Well, he's got $1,500 in his stack. I've got $1,500 in my stack. The cutoff player covers me, so I think I can set mine here. So I make the call for $130, and the cutoff makes the call as well. 3 ways, 3-bet pot, and the flop comes out 8-8-6 rainbow. An interesting board. I feel like we're going to be way ahead or way behind on this particular board. The big blind player who 3-bet pre-flop now slows down and checks over to me. I don't want to give a free card to any overcards like ace-king, ace-queen, queen-jack, king-jack, so I bet out $200, and the cutoff makes a very quick call, but the big blind makes the fold. So now we're heads up out of position to the queen of spades on the turn, an overcard to my pair, but I don't think my opponent's going to have many queen x hands in his range after he calls me on the flop, but I slow down and check over to him, and he fires out a big bet of $440. So far on this Vegas trip, my aggressive plays have been working. I made a huge bluff at the win with king-queen offsuit. I then shoved all in my last video with ace-4 of hearts and got it through. I shoved all in with jack-9 of spades with a flush draw and got that through as well. Basically, all my bluffs and all my moves are working so far, so I'm feeling pretty confident with the way I'm playing. I'm feeling pretty confident with my reads as well, and my read is telling me my opponent doesn't have that strong of a hand. I feel like he floated me on the flop. I don't think he's got a queen. I don't think he's got an 8, so I decide to jam all in. And I get snap called. Whoops. Yeah, I don't really know what to say about this one, guys. At the time, I felt like I could get him to fold a better hand and get him to maybe call with a worse. I don't know. You know, he ended up showing 8-9 offsuit for trips on the flop, and we punt a big one our very first hand. Poker does a great job at humbling you. I was feeling a little bit too overconfident with my game, and I just go punt off a complete buy-in. And I haven't made too many plays recently where I look back and say, what the fuck were you doing? And in this hand, I can say, I don't know. I don't know what I was doing. I was trying to make a fancy play. I don't know, but I just punted off $1,500. I'm not too happy with myself. I buy back in and hopefully not make any big more mistakes like that. About a half an hour later, I switch tables and look down at ace-queen, call a raise of $50 in the straddle, and go 3 ways to a queen 5-3 all-heart board. So with top pair, top kicker, I check to the initial raiser, who puts out a $50 bet. Cutoff player folds and the action's back over on me. I feel like a lot of the time we're going to have the best hand here. It's a monotone flop. The 3 and the 5 shouldn't connect with my opponent too well. I feel like with top pair, top kicker, I don't want to allow him to bet small on the flop and then check back and realize his equity. So I decide to check raise here with top pair, top kicker to $200. My opponent looks back at his cards and then makes the call for $200. Turn 10 of spades. Getting a little bit dicey now. We're losing to pocket 10s with a heart. We're now losing to queen 10, and we are losing to flop flushes and overpairs, but I still think there's hands I can still get value from. Hands like ace-king with the ace of hearts, ace-king with the king of hearts, queen x hands with a heart in it, I can still get value from all those hands. I don't want to give them a free river card, so I continue for $270, and my opponent makes the call again. River card 5 of clubs, and I feel like I could block bet here small or check, and I decide to check over to my opponent, who now bets $400 and not feeling too great about this situation. The bet is small. It's possible he could be doing this with king queen, queen jack. Maybe he's bluffing with ace king with the ace of hearts. I don't know. It's close. When the money's small and I'm getting a good price, I like to call. So I put in $400 and see 8-9 of hearts for a flopped flush. In all reality, this is somewhat of a cooler flop flush versus top pair, top kicker. but I do think I played this a little bit too aggressive. Probably could have just check called all the way down, and I end up losing probably the max in this hand. Right after this hand, they call me for my 10-20 seat, so I head up on the stage in the high limit area. What perfect timing. I'm down a bunch of money and playing some bad poker. Let's bump up the stakes. I buy in for $5,000, and the table is already a lot of action. I get seated at the must-move game, and there's a few players I don't recognize. I'm guessing they're recreational players or people who don't play for a living, which is obviously good for me. In this hand, there's a cutoff raise to 60, a button call. I call in the small blind with Jack-10 of clubs, and the big blind calls, and we see a flop 4 ways of deuce, 6, 5, 2 clubs. I flop a flush draw and check, and the action checks all the way around. Turn card, queen of clubs. Now giving me a flush, I do a little bit of a tricky, trappy check, and the cutoff checks. Button now bets $120, and with a flush, I check raise up here to $500. Button makes a pretty quick call, and we go to the river, which is the 4 of diamonds. I decided to go with a big bet of $1,100 on this river, trying to get hero called by a queen X hand or possibly a smaller flush, and eventually, my opponent on the button makes the call. And just like that, we were stuck over $3,000, and we almost get it all back our very first hand here at 10-20. There's 2 players on my immediate right who clearly look like novice players. One of them, who's in the low jack, is down over $10,000 on the session. He raises it up to $80, and the hijack makes the call. I 3-bet pocket 8s and the cutoff to $280. The low jack, who raised preflop, has been making some very odd plays. Some weird bluffs, some weird value bets. He's also been calling almost every bet, and things have just not been going his way. Like I said, he's down at least $10,000 since I've been here. They both call my 3-bet, and we go 3 ways to 9-6-6 rainbow, and now the low jack player leads out for $280. Like I said, I've seen this guy make some very weird plays. With pocket 8s, obviously there's an overcard to the board, but I obviously get suspicious when someone's leading out on a board that should just favor my range. I can have all the big overpairs. Would he really lead out here with a 9 and have me raise? Would he really lead out here with trips like 6-7 or 6-8? I get a little suspicious here and make the call, and the cutoff player makes the fold. The dealer collects the chips, and we go heads up to the 5 on the turn. All in all, a pretty good turn card. It brings me a gut shot now. Any 7 will give me a straight. It's not an overcard to my pocket 8s, but my opponent does not slow down. He called my 3-bet, he let out on the flop, and now he's continuing to bet for $360. The thing is, I've seen this guy make some really weird plays. He could be tilted. He could be thinking, I have a hand like ace-king or ace-queen. I'm just getting a good price. I have a straight draw. I have a pair. I decide to make the call for $360, and we go to the river, which is the 3 of diamonds. Really shouldn't change anything at all, and now, frustratingly, my opponent bets $400. He bets $400 into over a $2,000 pot. I've got to call $400 to win about $2,500. I'm just getting such a good price, but I'm probably not good here very often. I'm pretty frustrated, and eventually I just put in the chips. After calling $400, I get the bad news that I got completely owned by this low jack player. When he shows 9-10 of diamonds, he got the absolute max from the fish, aka me, paying him off 3 streets with second pair. Yikes. Now, at the time of recording this vlog, I actually played this hand about 10 days ago, and I remember sitting at the table after this hand thinking to myself, what are you doing today? Why are you playing so bad? I mean, I shoved all in with pocket 5s, I called with ace-queen, and now I'm calling down with pocket 8s? Well, I get a chance to get my money back here with pocket queens when I 3-bet up to $300 and get a call from the button, the same guy who just owned me, with 9-10 of diamonds. We go heads up to ace, queen, jack, 2 spades. I flop a set in a 3-bet pot against a player who does not like to fold. I continue here with a $300 bet, and the button makes the call. Turn 7 of spades, so now the front door flush gets there, but I'm really not too concerned about that. I have a set, and now I pick up the queen high flush draw as well. There's still a ton of hands I can get value from this particular opponent. I think he's still going to call with an ace, with a gut shot, maybe a jack X of spades hand, so I continue for $400, and the button makes the call again. Going here to the river in a sizable 3-bet pot, and it's the king of spades. We flopped a set and went runner, runner, nut, flush. All right, time to get some of our money back from this opponent. I don't want to bet too big. I want to try to get hero called by an ace, maybe a straight, a smaller spade. So I bet $600, and after about 30 seconds, my opponent on the button pays me off, and we are winning this one with pocket queens. We're making some bad decisions and some bad calls and some bad plays, but luckily the deck is rewarding us in some hands and we're getting some money back. Just a reminder to you guys, I'm hosting my first ever Florida meetup game at Seminole Casino, Coconut Creek, January 31st. It's a Tuesday starting around 6 p.m. The game is 1-3 with a $5 mandatory straddle, $500 buy-in. It's going to be a ton of fun, a lot of drinks, food, and good times. Hope to see you guys there. So far, I've been at the Bellagio for about 2 hours, and I've had a super swingy session. I lost about $3,000 plus at 510, came over here to 1020, won a decent pot with Jack 10 of clubs, lost a pot with pocket eights, and then boom, just won a big one there with pocket queens. I'm probably slightly even or maybe winning a little bit on the session, but make sure to stay tuned all the way to the end of the video. Things get wild. I end up playing some huge pots and having a huge stack at the end of it all. A tough reg and the cutoff makes it 60. I call in the big blind and flop another set on 10-8-6 two spades. I check over to him. He's got about $15,000 in his stack, and I've got about $6,000 or $7,000 in my stack. This could be a massive pot. He bets $100, and on this super wet connected board, so many straight draws, flush draws, and so many hands I can get value from, I don't slow play my set here. I raise it up to $360. Back over to the cutoff, who makes the call. Turn card brings in the flush. It's the 3 of spades. Not my favorite card. He can definitely have some flush draws in his range that he raised up here and then called my raise. He could still have some overpairs with a spade in it, maybe a 10x hand with a spade. I now continue for $400, and the cutoff makes the call again. And the river card, bink, 6 of diamonds, giving me a full house. So if we were losing to a straight, if we were losing to a flush, we just got there with a full house. I now bet $660, and my opponent snap folds, and we end up taking down a nice one here, flopping a set and making a full house on the river. My stack has now grown to over $8,000. One of the scariest things about playing 10-20 and the uncapped buy-in is that if I play a huge hand with one of these regs with $20,000 or $30,000 in their stack and they beat me, I could lose all my money in one single hand. A very interesting spot pre-flop when I get dealt in, finally, a big pocket pair, kings from early position. I raised to $60 and there's 2 callers before the button, 3 bets to $240. An interesting sizing here by the button. I would expect him to go a little bit bigger given the fact that there's all this dead money. I'm considering what sizing I want to go with my 4-bet here. The button player has about $5,500 in his stack, but then the big blind, the same player who owned me with 9-10 of diamonds and the player who called me when I had pocket queens for a flush, he's down to his last $670 and he decides to jam that all in. So I raised pre-flop, got 2 callers to button 3-bet, and now the big blind jams all in for $670. I'm really not sure what I should do here with pocket kings. Should I slow play and call? Should I re-raise again and 5-bet? I feel like a 5-bet would be somewhat of an overplay, kind of hard to get called by worse. So I decided to just call $660 for the big blinds all in. Basically, I'm hoping 2 things happen. 1, the button calls with weaker hands like ace king, ace queen, pocket 10s, pocket jacks, or the button may jam all in with a hand like pocket queens or pocket jacks, and I can snap call off. The button eventually ends up making the call, so we're 3 ways here in a 4-bet pot, over $2,000 in the main pot, but we still have over $5,000 to play for. Heads up against a button, and the flop comes out 8-4-4 2 spades, a beautiful flop for pocket kings. If I was ahead pre-flop, I'm definitely still ahead on this board. I don't think he's ever going to have a 4x hand or pocket 8s the way the hand's been played pre-flop. And now I actually have somewhat of a brain fart. I decide to bet out $600 here, and in my mind, I was the one who 4-bet, even though I called the 4-bet, and technically I should be checking over to the initial 3-better. I don't know, it was just very weird pre-flop with the big blind going all in, but for some reason I decided to lead out here instead of checking over to the button, but I actually like this play. I feel like I can get called by a lot of worse hands, pocket tens, jacks, and queens. I can get called by ace-king with the ace of spades. I also can try to deny equity from his hands like ace-queen, ace-king that would maybe check back if I bet into him. Eventually, after about a minute, the button ends up folding. We go heads up here with a big blind and end up holding here with pocket kings to win over a $2,000 pot, and our stack is just about $10,000 now. After winning this hand, I get moved over to the main game, which is playing 10-20 with a $40 straddle, and this game is no joke. The player to my right has over a $30,000 stack, and the player to his right has over a $20,000 stack. Everybody else at the table has me covered. I'm sitting with around $10,000. I'm up about $5,000 on the session over here. One of the players in the game bought a bottle of wine. I have no idea what kind of wine this is. I don't ever drink wine, but they poured me a glass. I'm not going to say no to free drinks while I'm out here in Vegas, so I guess we're getting a little frisky. The table now decides to play this stand-up game. I'm sure you guys have heard of this, so I'm not going to explain it. I'll just put the rules up here on the screen. This definitely adds a different dynamic to the game. It makes it very interesting. After about 5 minutes, there's only 3 players left standing. 1 player in seat number 4, 1 player to my right in seat number 7, and then me sitting in seat number 8. One of us 3 is going to have to pay out the bounty to the entire table. This hand comes up where the cutoff, who is sitting, raises to $120. The button, who's still standing, who must win a hand, calls $120. And with king queen offsuit in the small blind, I decided to go with a 3-bet squeeze here to $600. I'm hoping with my tighter image I can get a little bit of respect here. Maybe they'll fold pre-flop and I'll get to sit down, but that doesn't happen. The cutoff calls and the button calls. So we go 3 ways in a 3-bet pot over about $1,800 or $1,900 in the middle. And the flop comes out king high, giving me top pair. So this is a great situation. I 3-bet pre-flop. I'm still standing. I'm up against another player who's still standing as well. And I flop most likely the best hand. I bet out $500 and the cutoff very quickly folds. But the button, who's still standing, ends up making the call. And this is when the stand-up game gets very interesting. There's so many leveling wars behind this. Maybe he's floating me to try to bluff me later on. He might think that I'm trying to bluff or get out of line to try to win the stand-up game. When there's only a couple people standing and they go heads up, this is when the game gets really interesting. Well, on this turn card, it's a complete brick. I'm definitely not going to be checking over to him and giving him a free card. I'm going to continue to bet with my top pair, and I make it $1,700, which is a big bet for me. It's over the size of the buy-in that I've been buying in at 510 the entire week here on my trip. So this is a large bet, and I still have about $7,000 left in my stack. And like I said before, the button covers me with over $30,000. This is turning out to be one of the biggest pots I've played all trip, and it's getting bigger when the button makes the call over $6,000 in the middle, and the river card is a king, giving me trips. I 3-bet pre-flop, I bet the flop, I bet the turn, and I made trips here on the river. So now the question here out of position is, should I bet or should I check? And I feel like there's merit to both options. My thoughts at the time is I don't think he's going to have many pocket pairs like 8s or 9s that could hero call, because I think he would 3-bet those hands pre-flop. If I go all in here, maybe he will hero call with a 7, maybe hero call with a 5. But I feel like a lot of the time here he's going to have missed draws, maybe ace-high hands, or hands that really can't call after I've shown so much strength. So I actually think checking could be fine because it potentially could induce him to bluff with a hand like ace high, a missed flush draw, a missed straight draw, or he may put me on aces and turn a hand like pocket 4s into a bluff. So I decided to check over to him, basically thinking I'm going to call any bet he makes. I've got about the size of the pot left in my stack, and after about 10 seconds, my opponent decides to check back. That means we're winning. I show the king-queen for trips, and of course it is good. Since he didn't bet the river, we can assume we definitely have the best hand, and we do. We end up taking down over a $6,000 pot here, and the best thing is we get to sit down, and we're going to win a part of this stand-up game bonus. A couple hands go by and the player in seat number 7 actually lost the stand-up game, so he pays everybody out. And I guess how it works here is that the player who loses gets to pick when to play the stand-up game again. And he decided he wanted to play it right away. So about an orbit later, we start the stand-up game again. After about 10 minutes, I am only 2 people left standing with seat number 2. And we're in a predicament here where we've got to win a pot, or we're going to have to pay out the whole entire table a huge bounty. So like I said, only 2 of us left standing, me and seat number 2. This hand comes up where seat number 2, who's still standing, raises under the gun to $140. Everybody folds over to me in the big blind, and I defend with queen 8 offsuit just because I can't be folding these hands. I gotta give him some action, because if I just fold and the straddle folds, I lose the stand-up game. So this is when there's another leveling war in here where I'm in here with some trash hands. I know he's probably in there with some trash hands as well. Well, the straddle calls and we go 3 ways to ace, queen, 8, rainbow. I make a crazy bad call pre-flop and end up getting rewarded flopping 2 pair on an ace-high board. This is also a great board because the under the gun player could blast off 3 streets with a hand like king 10 or king jack, trying to get me to fold out worse hands on an ace-high board. So when he puts out a bet here, I have a very easy call. My plan is just to call down the entire way, keep all of his bluffs in, and just hope for the best and hope that we win. After thinking for a little bit of time, the straddle player decides to fold versus this $300 bet. So now it is heads up, me against the only other player standing. So after this hand, one of us is going to have to pay out the bounty, and hopefully it's not me. The turn card's the 3 of hearts. I check over to the under the gun player, and he continues, I'm not surprised, for a $790 bet. Like I said, plan is just check call, check call. I started this hand with over $12,000 in my stack, and he has about $15,000 in his stack. My hand's just not strong enough to check raise on this board. I would hate to check raise and get re-raised, so I stick with the plan and check call $790. A huge pot brewing here. 2 pair going to the 6 of hearts now on the river. Interesting card. Backdoor flush gets there. There's now a couple 2 pairs that beat us. Ace 3, ace 6. He could have ace queen. He could have aces, queens, pocket 8s. I mean, there's not that many hands that we're beating here. I check over to him thinking that he would just check back most single pair ace X here on the river. But checking is not what we see. We end up seeing a $2,000 bet here from the under the gun player. I was actually assuming that I would be facing a bigger bet here on the river. The pot's around $2,600, and I was expecting to face an overbet, maybe even a 2x size overbet here on the river. So when he bets only $2,000, it actually feels like he's just going for thin value. And like I said, I really don't beat anything here. I don't think he's ever betting the sizing with a hand like ace-jack or ace-10. So he could have a flush, he could have a set, a better 2 pair than me, but it's a stand-up game. I've gone this far. No way I'm folding for $2,000 more, so I put in the call. He announces 2 pair, and I say, which one? And he shows 8-3 offsuit for a 2 pair on the turn, which is no good against our queen 8 offsuit for 2 pair on the flop. A sick hand, 2 pair versus 2 pair, the final 2 players in the stand-up game, and I end up coolering my opponent, end up winning a nice one here, and again, get to sit down and collect another stand-up game bonus. Just an insane, sick session for me. I was down $3,000, playing pretty terribly at the 5-10 game. I come over here to the 10-20 game. I run good, I win some hands, I then play bad and lose some hands, and then I go on a massive heater, flopping sets, making full houses, winning with pocket kings, and then winning 2 massive pots in the stand-up game. I just ran pure the entire night. Everything went my way. I really never had to bluff. I didn't have anybody try to crazy bluff me and make a bad fold. And after a couple hours of playing, I end up cashing out for a massive $16,000 stack. One of my biggest cash outs to date. Well, that was a pretty unexpected session. I bought in for around $5,000 at the 10-20 game and cashed out for $16,000. So I won like $11,000 in like 2 or 3 hours at 10-20. I ran really well. I didn't really do anything spectacular. I didn't make any crazy plays. I just ran well. I made some hands, and I won big in those 2 stand-up games, which was nice. On the day, ended up winning a little over $6,000. So on the trip, 4 nights, 4 days, ended up profiting. Right, I'm finishing the outro in the car because my phone died. So very profitable trip. 4 days, ended up winning $8,000. Most of that coming today when we won $11,000 at the 10-20 game, $6,000 in the day. So the big difference between the 5-10 game and the 10-20 game, well, there's a bunch of differences, but being able to play super deep stack, being able to play straddles, it definitely changes the game up a lot. But one thing I do like about playing 10-20 is that it's more of like a home game aspect because it's a lot of the same regs. Every single time I come here in Vegas, I play with the same guys in the 10-20 or the same ladies. And it's just, it's more fun because you get to know people, you get to know their names. It's a lot more fun than just sitting in a dusty 5-10 game that you don't know anyone and you're just folding, raising, calling, whatever. So even though it's a tough game and even though I'm probably one of the worst players at the table, it still is somewhat enjoyable to play the game. And I'll be back in a couple months, hopefully, to play some more high-stakes poker in Vegas. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hit that thumbs up button. Comment down below and subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. Almost to 50,000 subscribers. Up next, more Florida videos, some tournaments in Florida as well. All right, until next time, I'll see ya.